Malcolm Avery had spent his life fighting for justice. Raised by a single white mother in the heart of Atlanta, he had grown up acutely aware of the complexities of race, power, and perception. His mother, Eleanor Avery, had always presented herself as a progressive woman, a champion of equality, someone who had taught him to be proud of his black heritage. It was because of her that he had pursued law. Because of her that he had stood in courtrooms, facing down powerful corporations and corrupt officials, ensuring that marginalized voices were heard. She had always been his biggest supporter, the person who encouraged him to push forward when the world tried to pull him back. But everything changed the day he received an anonymous envelope. It arrived at his office without a return address. Inside was a single photograph, grainy, old, black and white. A group of people stood in front of a large house, dressed in formal attire, their expressions solemn. At first, Malcolm didn't recognize them. But then, his breath caught. At the center of the photograph stood Eleanor. Younger. Smiling. And behind her, barely visible, was a symbol Malcolm knew all too well, a discreetly embroidered mark on the sleeve of one of the men beside her. The symbol of the American Covenant. A group that had spent decades manipulating racial politics under the guise of neutrality, positioning itself as a network of concerned citizens while ensuring that black progress remained stifled. It wasn't as overt as the Klan. It operated in shadows, behind legal policies, boardroom decisions, judicial appointments. A refined kind of oppression. And now, staring at the image, Malcolm felt the ground beneath him shift. His mother had spent years standing beside him, pushing him forward. But had she also been pulling strings behind his back? Had she been part of the very system he was fighting against? He needed answers. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't sure if he was ready to hear them. Malcolm confronted Eleanor that evening. She was in the kitchen, slicing vegetables, humming an old jazz tune. It was a familiar scene, one that had always made him feel at home. But now, it felt staged, artificial. He placed the photograph on the counter. "Tell me this isn't real." Eleanor stilled. The knife hovered over the cutting board, her fingers tightening around the handle. "Where did you get this?" "That's not an answer." His voice was quiet, steady. "Tell me the truth." She exhaled slowly, placing the knife down. Then she turned to face him, her blue eyes searching his face. "I was young," she said. "I didn't understand what they were." Malcolm clenched his jaw. "You stood with them. You smiled with them. And now I find out, after all these years," he took a breath, forcing himself to stay calm. "Did you ever believe in what they stood for?" No, her answer came too quickly. Too practiced. "Then why were you there?" Eleanor hesitated. Then, finally, she spoke. "Because they helped me." The words sent a chill down his spine. She continued, her voice measured. "I was a single mother, Malcolm. Alone. No support. They offered resources, scholarships, legal connections, financial stability." She swallowed. "And they wanted to help you." Malcolm's breath caught. "What?" She stepped closer, eyes pleading. "You were brilliant. And they saw that. They knew that having a black advocate, one raised by a white mother, would be useful to them. A way to control the narrative. They wanted you to succeed, Malcolm. Because they knew they could use you." The room spun. His entire career. His victories. His belief in his own agency. Had it all been orchestrated? "Did you know?" he whispered. Tears filled her eyes. "At first, no. I thought they just wanted to support us." But as the years passed, she lowered her gaze. "Yes. I knew." Malcolm stepped back as if burned. "You let them use me." His voice cracked. "You let me fight for something that they controlled. I wanted to protect you." Noah's hands curled into fists. "You wanted to protect yourself." A long silence stretched between them. Then Eleanor spoke again, softly. They'll come for you now. Malcolm frowned. What? She swallowed hard. They know you've seen the truth. They don't let people walk away. A deep, cold fear settled in Malcolm's chest. He had spent his life battling injustice. But this wasn't just a courtroom fight. This was a war that had been waged long before he was born. And now, he had a choice. Malcolm spent the next week digging. He contacted old colleagues, traced financial records, uncovered hidden connections between politicians, judges, and the American Covenant. The deeper he went, the uglier the truth became. This wasn't just an organization. It was an empire. And his mother, she had been one of its pawns. But she wasn't the only one. They had placed people everywhere, shaping laws, influencing public opinion, ensuring that any real progress remained controlled. And Malcolm had been their golden boy. The proof that their system worked. Until now. He knew what he had to do. The night before he was set to release his findings, his phone rang. An unknown number. He answered. A voice, calm and measured, spoke on the other end. Mr. Avery. We strongly advise you to reconsider. Malcolm's grip tightened on the phone. Is that a threat? A pause. Then, the voice replied, a reminder. The line went dead. He exhaled slowly, staring at the screen. They were watching. Waiting. But he wouldn't stop. The next morning, Malcolm released everything. Documents. Evidence. A full expose on the American Covenant and its decades-long manipulation of racial justice movements. He named names. Showed proof. And then, he did the one thing they hadn't expected. He went on camera. Live. This isn't just about corruption, he said, staring directly into the lens. This is about control. And for too long, we've allowed them to dictate the terms of our progress. No more. It was a declaration of war. And war was exactly what he got. The fallout was immediate. His home was vandalized. His accounts were frozen. Journalists were smeared. Friends distanced themselves. And Eleanor. She disappeared. A note was left on his doorstep. She's safe. Stay silent. Malcolm stared at it for a long time. Then, he burned it. He knew the cost of the path he had chosen. But for the first time in his life, he was truly free. And he wasn't turning back.